Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abby, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abby, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abby podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dear Abby. I'm your host. My name is Abby. Welcome to this Thursday's episode. I need to do some housekeeping really fast before we get into today's episode. As you know, perhaps if you listen, I've mentioned it quite a billion times. I'm getting married, and I'm getting married next week actually. And then I'll be on my honeymoon for 2 weeks. So I was thinking maybe I should just batch a bunch of episodes. And I was planning on doing that. But the closer I've gotten, I don't want to just make episodes to make episodes. And I'm just going to treat it like PTO or time off from a normal job. So I'll have an episode, obviously this episode and the next week, which will go live the day I'm getting married. But I'm just making it before that. So this week and next week, there will still be episodes, but then the 2 weeks after that, I won't be posting. So just an FYI, I'm taking that as just time off. I just wanted to let myself relax and enjoy these last couple of weeks of being engaged before I get married. I'm setting the boundaries, but I have a lot of episodes. I mean, I have hundreds of episodes, it feels like. I mean, I only have like 100 something, but still a lot of episodes if you want to go back to the beginning or whenever. There's lots of episodes, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. I haven't forgotten about you. I'm not done. Just because I'm married doesn't mean I'm just stopping everything. I just wanted to take some time for myself and to recoup after the wedding planning and after everything that these last couple months have been, and then I'll be back and ready to rumble. So we're going to do life updates, and then I wanted to talk about, it's kind of a continuation from last week. Last week I talked about a lot of building up resentment or going through a lot of childhood like memories that are really negative, and I've always had anxiety and all of these negative memories of my childhood and of growing up, and it's almost like my brain could only remember the bad times. And it was an important process, as I talked about last week, but now I wanted to focus on two things: how I've come out of that, and now how I'm able to really understand and see both sides, the good and the bad, of growing up and with anxiety. And there were times that I didn't have it, and I was just a sweet little girl, and I laughed with my siblings, and we did all of that fun stuff. So I wanted to talk about the kind of the opposites of that and how that plays a huge role, I think, for me in terms of moving forward with my life and letting the past be in the past and being able to see life in reality and for what it really is on both sides, and how that's been really helpful for me to be more accepting of life. The second thing is because I've been feeling really good, I haven't gone to therapy in a while because of my insurance stuff. But it's actually been a blessing in disguise because I've felt a lot more empowered by myself. Sometimes I think with too much therapy for me becomes exhausting, and I know what I need to be doing, and sometimes I just don't do it. And I don't think I really care too much what my therapist thinks about me. So I'm like not motivated by like an accountability person to do that. I feel like I need to take it upon myself to do it. And so now that I don't have her, I feel like that's what I'm doing, is I'm taking it upon myself, and I'm holding myself accountable, because there's not always going to be someone that's going to hold you accountable. I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And with feeling better, I wanted to talk about taking up space and feeling okay to take up space in your own head, like in your own body again, after a long battle with, anxiety or OCD, or just when you're starting to feel better, and to not let go of good things just because you're scared they're going to end. In fact, that's when you should really hold on and be able to relax into the good things, and a lot easier said than done. But that's something that I also wanted to talk about a little bit. They kind of are similar things, the two things I mentioned, but that's what we're talking about today. But before that, I wanted to give a debrief on this weekend because it was my bachelorette weekend. Ooh, ooh. Psh, psh. So my sister planned, and I think JC helped her a lot as well. And my friend Jessica, they all helped, but I think Chelsea was the leader. And they planned like a whole weekend. So we went to an Airbnb, a beautiful, beautiful Airbnb in Joshua Tree. Well, it's in Yucca Valley, but it's right next to Joshua Tree. There were some Joshua trees, so it was close. It was just me, Chelsea, and my best friend Jessica. We had 2 people that were supposed to come, but one of them got sick and the other one just had too much going on, and so they weren't able to make it, sadly. But it was still fun. It was still a party. So we drove there on Friday evening. We got there. We basically immediately started getting ready, and then we went to what was called a disco dinner, like disco night. And that's when we got an all disco-y vibe clothes, and we went to the cutest restaurant called, I think it was the Copper Room. And we just had dinner, took a lot of pictures, just was super fun. The funny thing is so my friend had to bring her baby because she didn't have anyone to watch her baby. And she's, I think, 6 or 7 months, still a baby. And my sister also ended up bringing her baby. So it was like a baby bachelorette weekend, which maybe to some doesn't sound fun, but I love babies. Like, I just love babies. And so I was more than happy to have babies come along for the ride. And when we were at the restaurant, both the babies were there. It was a little bit chaotic, but in a fun way. Then we got home, just hung out for a little bit after the babies went down, went to bed, woke up, had a cute little pancake breakfast. Then we made flower bouquets with my best friend, who I've mentioned is a florist. And so she kind of taught us how to do stuff, which was blowing my mind, that you could make bouquets look the way that they do in a vase. It just was blowing my mind that there's so many tricks that you can do to make a bouquet look better, like to make flowers in a vase look better. So that was really cool and very useful and helpful for future floral arrangements at any gathering. And we just had music, like calm music playing in the background. It was just a vibe. I felt so relaxed. It's been so hectic and I'm so grateful, but I was feeling so like couldn't catch my breath, and I was finally able to catch my breath and really start to soak in that I'm getting married, and in a less anxious way, but it's settling in, where I'm just excited. Like I got like the nerves, but then I also got like the feeling of finally feeling secure and supported, and not like this floaty feeling, but I finally am able to feel like, okay, the next chapter of my life is about to start. After we did our floral arrangements, I think that's when we tried to get in the pool, but the pool was still freezing cold. They said they heated it up, but it was not hot enough, and it was freezing and it was windy. And so we didn't actually end up, I got in for like a second and it was still cold, so I got out. But then my favorite part of the trip, I think, was when we were painting, because my sister, I don't know whose idea it was, but they got like a linen tablecloth, like a table cover, and it was just plain white. And they brought all the supplies, and we all just painted little sections of the tablecloth that I now get to keep. It's so cute because everyone has their own different vibe where they painted, and it's just so cute. And I'm excited to have that like forever as something to remember that weekend by, and those people that were there, and like a little piece of them in my house. And so that was really special to me. And I told Chelsea this, but I was like, I felt very seen that whole weekend, because that was my vibe that I wanted, was like artsy and also calming and like a really good getaway. That was amazing. And now I have a cute table cover, and there's still lots of places that we can paint, but I feel like I just want that to be a continuous painting table cover. Yeah, it's a very cute idea. And then after that, we got ready for like our sunset dinner, which was, I dressed in satin white and everybody else dressed in like sunset colors. I think everyone just kind of dressed in yellow pretty much. But then we just took some photos and then ate pasta. Well, to correct myself, we took photos, and then we originally were going to eat in our dresses, but we all decided to change into sweats so we could eat more comfortably. Which was a idea because we could actually relax and eat without worrying of spilling on our dresses. And also, it's just nice to be able to slouch and eat some pasta. Just let me eat the pasta. Then we just vibed, watched some Catfish, painted a little bit more. Then we went to bed. I ate a lot of cinnamon bears, which now I'm craving again, but I don't eat sugar on the weekdays. And then we woke up, we went to a cafe or a coffee shop that was close by. And then we went to antique shopping where everyone got me like one like thing to bring into my new house, like something old, something new, something blue. So they got me something old. And then that was the end. We drove home in the rain. We saw a rainbow, which is just a beautiful sight to see. And then thus the weekend was over. It went by way too fast. It felt like it was never going to happen, but it did happen and now it's over. Which am getting worried because I feel like that's how the wedding is. And it's also going to be that's how my honeymoon is going to be. But I'm not going to think about that. There's no point. It will eventually be over, yes, but there'll be more. There's more to life. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it. It was a very wonderful way to celebrate with my friends, future sister-in-law and sister. And it was really, I was thinking how much of a full circle moment it was because when I found out that my ex-husband had cheated, Chelsea and JC were both there. And like we all were investigating together. And so it's just funny because then we were all at my bachelorette weekend together. And it was a full 360. And it was just really cool because who would have thought that, I was then going to move to California, meet her husband's little brother, and then a couple years later, we would be celebrating my bachelorette weekend right before I get married to him. It's just kind of crazy, it's like divine intervention because so I'm going to use that to kind of go into like the main part of today's episode. I've just been way more focused on the good, and it might just be because I'm getting married, and so things are looking up for me. But for a while, it was like I was so angry and I was frustrated and I felt hurt. And, I've devoted my life to like my faith and to try to pursue a relationship with God and all of these things. And when my divorce happened, it felt like my world came crashing down, and it made me really mad towards God or towards myself or towards life or, everything pretty much. But then for the whole time, I was also always fighting with that, like wrestling with that, and also seeing all of the people and all of the blessings and all of the things that I have to genuinely be grateful for. And that sometimes that's what's hard with mental illness is you know what you need to be grateful for and you can see it and it's like right there. But sometimes you just don't feel it and you feel like you're not allowed to be grateful for it because there's something you need to fix before you get to that point. I don't know all the answers to that, but what I do know and what I've experienced is it took a while, a lot of wrestling, but now I'm here and I am refusing to kind of go into that rabbit hole again in my head because I know where that leads. To be specific, the rabbit hole of either an OCD obsession or the rabbit hole of like shame, like I don't deserve this. It doesn't matter if I deserve it or not. I have this and I'm going to be grateful for it. So I don't have to spend my whole life thinking, do I deserve this? Do I not deserve this? If I have it in front of me, I'm going to cherish it. It doesn't matter if I deserve it or not. Like I feel like I just don't care about that answer anymore. And that just creates more shame because then I never feel good enough for anything. So as I was saying last week, I was very focused on the negative. It was almost like I had to go through that. Like I had to acknowledge all of the negative parts of my life. I had to acknowledge everything that OCD took away from me. I had to acknowledge everything I missed out on because of my anxiety or the way that I was trying to be so controlling over things and pain that caused me in my relationships. And that was a process to learn about and then to also reconcile And I feel like now, after all of that work, I'm kind of coming out on the other end. And I know I am, because now when I think back to my childhood, or when I think back to even high school or junior high or any of those times, it's not all negative that I remember. I feel like that fog has kind of washed away a little bit. And I know that there were negative parts, and I was so anxious, and I was held back multiple times because of that, mentally. And I had so much fun when I was a little girl, and I had so much fun with my siblings, with my mom, my dad. I can remember all of these really good, positive memories finally. And I feel like, as well as like, I'm not angry with the people that I love. Like, I'm not angry anymore with like parents or siblings or friends or anything. It's just like, I'm able to let all of it go and see life for what it really is, the good and the bad. And I also started to see, like, and even when I thought about high school, it's like there's a lot of crazy things that happened in high school and a lot of dark times. Like, I feel like everyone can relate to that. But also, that's where I met like my best friends. That's where I had so much fun being goofy, being girly, singing One Direction in the car with my friends, dancing, having fun. And yes, that also goes along with all the negatives that eventually, that it's inevitable to happen. I feel like when I see both, I'm able to move forward knowing what I would rather choose to A, focus on, and B, try to curate or create in my own life and with my own kids and with my family. When I think of the memories and the things that really helped me, that I grasped onto at like the worst times, I want to curate those with other people. And a key thing was definitely to forgive people that for some reason I felt like I had to forgive, that maybe unintentionally did something to hurt me, or intentionally, I don't know. It didn't really matter. I just feel like I am now able to see people in all lights instead of just in a negative light. And it's very freeing. But that didn't happen overnight, and that wasn't an easy thing to get to. And I'm not like done with that. I'm not saying everything's always positive when I ever think about anything, but I do feel like I am a lot more empowered within my own head of like, no, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to live my life. OCD is still there. Like, all day today when I was at work, I was trying to focus on work, and then all of a sudden I'd have like an intrusive image or thought of like, I would be listening to a song, and if it had like an eerie tone, it would like, my OCD would spike up, and it would be like, think of something weird. And then it'd be like, why are you thinking of that? And then instead of me checking, or instead of me thinking, or instead of me trying to like be like, wait, do I like this? Do I not like this? Any of those checking behaviors, I was like, I'm not checking. Like, I see you, but I'm not checking. I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't care what happens. Like, I'm not going to do that. And then I moved on. And then it happened like 20 more times probably, but it got easier and easier and easier, as it has over the course of a couple years now. And it just feels good to have my ability to see things clearly back. And even if it doesn't last forever, like, I know I can get through the hard times, but until it's bad, I'm just going to lean into it being good. And I'm safe here in the good. It's okay to let my guard down with my fiance, who's soon going to be my husband. I have worked my butt off to get to this point. I still have a long ways to go. When you have struggled with shame for a long time, I feel like it's pretty common if you grew up with like a mental disorder from a very young age. I mean, I'm just saying that because that's what happened to me. And so I always felt like something was wrong with me, because when I would be like, oh, like, do you think like this? It'd be like, no. And it's like, okay, well, why am I having constant intrusive thoughts? That just started to create a lot of shame. So now that I'm an adult, I still have those layers of shame, and I feel very helpless at points. And with that feeling of shame comes wanting to shrink and wanting to not take up space. Like, sometimes it feels like other people have more of a say over our lives than we do, or it feels like other people have the right to take up space in a grocery store, more of a right to take up space in the gym, in a career, in your creative space. When you have a lot of shame, it feels like you're not allowed to take up that space, because a lot of those layers are coming off I now want to take up that space. And it's not saying like you can be, and I don't think taking up space equals puffing your chest up and thinking you're better than everybody type of a thing. That's not like what even feels good to me. It's more like I can do what I feel like is best for myself and is best for my family and is best for my life. And I'm just going to do what I think is best. And that's okay. And not everybody has to agree or has to see my side or understand me. I can validate myself and that I'm doing the best that I can with what I know. I still have that attitude or that voice in my head that's very, more of like the shame voice. And it's definitely still there. It's just not as loud. And so I have a lot more power over it. But one way that I've been able to kind of overcome it little by little is by taking up space before you feel like it's okay. And also just by the small things, like when you're bored, don't scroll. I know, like, how does that connect to shame? It just does. I don't know. It helps you face yourself. And that's like, shame doesn't want you to do that. It doesn't want you to face yourself or to like be alone and have to sit with like uncomfortable feelings and thoughts. So that's been really helpful too, is when I'm bored to just be like, okay, I have to sit through this wave of like anxiety that comes over when I'm bored. And I'm not distracting myself, because that's just going to further create more and more and more anxiety when I get bored a little bit. So then I have to do more and more stuff. And when I notice that I am constantly needing something to distract me or to scroll or to watch something or to have something on, I know I need to like relax for a second, turn everything off, grab my journal or listen to like lo-fi, something very not stimulating, or just to cry or just to like meditate and pray or whatever. And then I feel connected with myself again, which helps me have strength to kind of battle my shame. Okay, that's it for that. We're going to do a Dear Abby and then wrap up today's episode. But I got a voicemail and I didn't want to play it because it was because it might be a little bit too triggering. But I did want to talk about what the person asked about. And it is a very heavy subject because it's about self-harm. I wanted to speak on it, but I am not a therapist, and sometimes I get messages that are very heavy. And I'm very grateful that I am trusted with like any information, and you can confide in me because I take that stuff very seriously. But also it is important that if you actually are having like a mental emergency, call somebody, call a hotline, or tell your therapist or a professional or your doctor, anybody that's around you, and ask for help. And there's no shame in that. There really is not. I've done it. I've called 911 before. Sometimes we need somebody to intervene. And I am not qualified to give actual therapeutic advice. I am not a professional in any way. I just wanted to briefly talk about my experience, but mostly focus on what I did to help myself. So that being said, they asked about ways to kind of handle this. And so I wanted to share what I did when I would harm myself. Again, trigger warning for anybody that needs to hear it. When I was younger, I would pinch myself. That's kind of how it started. And I would smack something I would pinch myself. I would dig my nails into my palms until they were like almost piercing the skin. It was very red, very irritated constantly. And, the self-harm, from what I understand, again, not a professional, is you're in a lot of emotional pain and it's hard to bear it. And so you hurt yourself physically because that feels like it's taking away from the emotional, mental pain. So from what I understand, that's why we can turn towards self-harm. And that's what I felt within myself, is I didn't want to handle like the emotional pain or like the feelings I was having. And so that's what I would do. And it would also be a way to like punish myself for thoughts, feelings. It felt like something that helped in the moment, but then it just perpetuated more and more. When I got older, it turned into a little more severe of self-harm. So I'm not going to get into the details of that. But once I got to that point, I knew I needed to seek help. I didn't think I'd be someone that would do this. Like, I just never thought that would be me. But, things escalated and it was me and I needed to get help. And so I really just told my therapist and my psychiatrist, and I told them everything super honestly, because sometimes when we're not honest about how far it's gone, we will not be able to receive the help because we're not even being honest with ourselves. And so I think step one for me was to be super honest with myself of how bad it's gone and that I don't want to live like this anymore. And I think that's like the first step to really understand that you need help. If you downplay how bad you're doing mentally and emotionally, that's obviously going to further create more and more pain, because I believe that your body's probably trying to tell you that like this is not okay, the route you're going down, and your heart is like this is not okay. Be super honest with yourself, and then be super honest with your doctor or your therapist or whoever. Even if that therapist or whoever you tell is not going to be the person that helps you out of it, tell somebody, and then they can help refer you to someone, or they can start to figure it out. But you have to tell somebody, and you have to be super honest with yourself and with other people. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, why you think you deserve it. You do not. You deserve to get help, and you can get help. People have been in your shoes and they have gotten help, and they are okay now, and they are happy and thriving. So it is possible, even if you don't feel like it's ever going to be possible for you, it is. I do not take this stuff lightly, and it is very hard to hear, but I've seen that within myself before. And so I know that sometimes you can just keep perpetuating it and be like, oh, it's fine because I can handle it. But you don't have to handle that treatment. Like, you don't have to handle that. You're going to be okay, and everything's going to be okay. And even if you don't believe it, then believe me when I say it. The people around you probably care more than you think, and will be more helpful than you think, and more understanding than you would think. And if you find a therapist that's not super helpful or understanding, then keep looking. And if you don't, and keep looking for somebody that will help you, because you deserve to get help. And there is help out there. There's a lot of people that really, really care and that really, really want to help you get better mentally. But you got to start with being honest with yourself and being honest with the people around you. Don't isolate, because I know that's harder, because I know that's easier just to isolate, but that will not help you. You have to try to connect with other people. And even if it's in a support, and go to a support group, try to find like a support group near you. There's lots of apps. There's lots of places that you could look to find people who also have depression that you could talk to about it, who understand you and who won't judge you and who get it. And that will help you start to feel less shame and less self-loathing, and you'll start to feel connected to other people, which helps. So definitely don't isolate. There are more people than you think that will understand where you are and where you've been, who would be happy to get to know you and be happy to talk to you and help you. That's probably all I'm going to say on that matter. Again, I definitely don't feel qualified talking about this. That was a bit of a heavy subject. I was not going to answer it because I don't want to take that on, because I'm not qualified. But I do feel like there's a lot of people that do relate to that, unfortunately. And so I wanted to speak on that at least a little bit, so that, I can direct them to somebody who can help them. Well, that's going to be it for today's episode. If you want to support the podcast, you can like, subscribe, or comment on YouTube, as well as leave a rating or review on Apple or Spotify. I hope you guys have a good weekend. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Have fun. Eat some nice junk food this weekend. The good old 80-20. Love you. Bye. Taking a ride to journey. 눈치 보면서 들어가야 할 때 찾아. 나머진 바빠. 개설레임 바꾸는 사람들.